Good morning, folks. Got a great show for you. We're going to talk about a lot of different regions in the world today. This is going to be more of a foreign, diplomatic, political, big picture show. I hope you're ready for it. Get your pens and paper ready. Fill up that coffee cup and let's do this. Good morning, folks. At the end of World War II, Hitler, who considered himself a military genius, decided he was losing on the Russian front. The Russians were advancing from the east, and the Western allies were advancing from the west. He said, "You know what? If I could just break out in the west, if I could just take my resources and throw them at the west, break through their lines, cause a retreat, I could mop up their forces in a retreat, return to my blitzkrieg attack system, and get a footing in Europe, and then I could fight off those Russians, man, because those Russians are starving and running out of ammunition, and frankly, their tanks suck. Just need some time. I can make it happen." So he did. He took his reserves and he threw them all at one point on the Western line, and yeah, it didn't happen. He had a bit of a breakout. You know it as the Battle of the Bulge. It was immediately stomped down, and it changed nothing. It just cost a lot of lives, and it changed nothing. That's what we're seeing today from Putin, folks, and he suffers from the same disease that Hitler did. He thinks he's a genius. He thinks he is a military genius, a military strategist. And we just saw his Battle of the Bulge. That's what just happened in Israel. See, Putin's getting demolished in Ukraine. They're doing everything they can, and they just have not been able to they just have not been able to they're not going to survive. The Ukrainians are just slowly marching kilometer by kilometer by kilometer forward, and no matter what the Russians do, they're just being decimated. So for Putin's birthday on October 7th, he was given two presents. His military commanders in Ukraine started their own Battle of the Bulge in Ukraine in a village called Avdik. One second. Let me go to the map. Avdivka. Man, my mouth is dry today. I'm going to go through a lot of coffee. You see Donetsk. This little area in the red, let me blow it up for you. This is Donetsk. This is the region that is everything to Putin, even more than Luhansk, which is closer to their border, closer to Moscow. Donetsk is everything. Donetsk is his reasoning for invading Ukraine in the first place, because there are a lot of ethnic Russians that live in Donetsk. This area in red is the village of Avdiivka. and it sits in an area that gives you a perfect strategic advantage in attacking Donetsk. The Russians know if the Ukrainians establish a foothold in Avdiivka, they lose Donetsk. They do. So Putin has thrown everything he has at Avdiivka, and the Ukrainians have held. They've held the line. The Russians tried to go back on the offense. In the last few days, Russia has lost over 2,400 men, 100 tanks, and at least one fighter, an Su-25. They've gone back to the old Russian throw wave after wave after wave of men at the enemy, and they're just being decimated. The Ukrainians are holding the line and they're being decimated. They'll break this offensive soon, and Donetsk will fall. What Putin is gambling on and hoping for in this region, talking about this region, um, his big gamble is support from General Winter. This is the weather forecast in Donetsk. It's pretty much well guaranteed that this time of year, starting next week, you're going to get a lot of rain falling in Donetsk, and it's not going to stop until it turns to snow and ice, and the temperatures are dropping down to freezing. And that's what Putin's hoping for. The Russians are hoping that General Winter will save them through this year and they can somehow get back on the offensive. And they're going to try doing everything they can. The Ukrainians have sworn that this winter will not be like last winter. Nobody's digging in. They're going to stay on the offensive all winter long, which means a lot of Ukrainian young men are going to die because fighting in the winter in this region is deadly. It is deadly. General Winter will take his toll. And if you're fighting in the winter, you want to be on the defensive. You do. You want to be in your trenches where you can stay warm. You don't want to be advancing out in the field. But Ukraine is committed, and I absolutely believe they will succeed. But Putin's gambling, man. Putin's gambling. So his allies opened up another front for him. I'm not going to show everything that we're learning, but because I think it serves Hamas more than anybody. But I think you need to see a bit of it because there are a lot of people, especially on the left, that are suffering from delusions about what's happening in Israel and Gaza today. The Israeli soldiers have begun to mop up the cities that were assaulted by Hamas. There's a video here. If you look here at Kibbutz Berry. Kibbutz is a farm community. It's a farm community. They're up to over 1,500 confirmed dead. Many children, babies. You've heard about the babies that were beheaded and shot in their beds. These, let me blow this map up for you. It'll take just a second. These are several of the communities that Hamas hit coming out of Gaza. Sderot, Kfar Aza, Kibbutz Be'eri. No, this is the Nova Music Festival where the massacre occurred near Oz. The Israeli soldiers have beaten Hamas back and are taking this territory. So the next thing that they have to do is that they have to go in, clean up. I'm not going to play this video. It's horrific. You see this Palestinian Hamas fighter, uh, terrorist, just walks up to this car, opens fire, and they kill everybody in the car. I think a description will do it. I don't think we have to look at it. The Nova Festival, this is horrific. There was just indiscriminate killing at this music festival. Just, and they're proud of it. They filmed it. They're posting it. They are proud of it. They rolled through village after village after village, massacring civilians. Just massacring civilians. The New York Times has these available for you. They just posted this article just a little while ago. You're more than welcome to go watch them if you want. I don't encourage it. I don't. It's about as grim as it's going to get right there, and it's much worse, I assure you. It is much worse. They're finding bodies of men, women, and children everywhere. That's Putin's gift for his birthday on October 7th. See, Putin's regime is crumbling. It is. It's crumbling. And this is his battle of the bulge. He needs a second front. He needs to distract us from supporting Ukraine to buy him time to get through this winter. And we can't give it to him. We can't give it to him. But I assure you, the Russians are trying. I should say the Republicans are trying. They're trying their damnedest. See, we don't even have an ambassador to Israel right now. We don't. We've got a guy that's acting, but we don't have an actual ambassador to Israel to deal with this. See, Rand Paul, for those of you who don't know Rand Paul, and I'm sure you do, we have the most informed audience in the world here. Rand Paul, identified by the mop on the head that many people think is due to mopping up Crisco with his hair. See, Rand Paul, he's got a hold on all State Department appointments. Is not allowing any ambassadors to be confirmed. They're undercutting our ability to engage in diplomacy. Now, what Rand Paul claims is his reasoning behind it is he believes there's a conspiracy theory about COVID. And he claims that he's got another whistleblower. But it's crap. It is. It's crap. I'll explain the conspiracy theory in a second. Yeah, Rand Paul was Trump's go-between when Trump couldn't go nuzzle Putin's taint himself. He sent Rand Paul. And now Rand Paul is demolishing our ability to engage in diplomacy. I say for Putin. What Rand Paul's conspiracy theory is that, and claims to have a whistleblower. They always have, we've heard the whistleblowers. They always end up being crap. And this one is too. What Rand Paul wants is access into the CIA. See, when COVID first broke out, the CIA were investigating where the hell did it start, and like everyone else, it sent them back to Wuhan. And the CIA had an early assumption that, hey, maybe Maybe this had something to do with the Wuhan laboratory that's studying zoonotic diseases, and that's where, COVID came from. Well, the CIA said, "Keep digging," and they paid the investigators to keep digging. Well, in Rand Paul's mind, he bribed them. Sherry Foster's good comment. These are war crimes, plain and simple. These cruel, horrific, evil, abusive, inhumane, selfish, and uncaring people didn't get to finish it. Need to get caught and held accountable. They will be. I'm going to get to that. Theron says Putin would have MAGA do the same in America as what Hamas did in Israel. And I believe that MAGA and Republicans absolutely pose a violent threat to America. But back to where we were with Rand Paul's delusional conspiracy theory. So the CIA paid these investigators, said, keep looking, keep looking. This was an early finding. And to Rand Paul, that's a conspiracy because he got the answer he wanted. Oh, it's the Wuhan lab. Yeah, it's a lab leak, and they can't prove it 100%, but they think it might be. And then you paid them to keep looking. Therefore, you bribed them. And that is not hyperbole. That is what he's alleging. And he's demanding access into the CIA's interworkings and investigative uh, processes and procedures. And because the CIA understands exactly what Rand Paul is, they said, hell no. No, you don't get anything, period. So Rand Paul has put a hold, claiming it's because there's a conspiracy theory over COVID, which is ridiculous. And let me explain why. And after those horrific images, you need an eyeball cleaner. And I got it for you right here. Isn't that about the most adorable thing you've ever seen? That's a civet. It's a little cat monkey, half cat, half monkey. And they are adorable. I'm surprised there hasn't been a huge market. Uh, I'm surprised there hasn't been a huge market for these things domestically. They really are. They're just about. I highly suggest if you want an eyeball cleanser and a spirit cleanser after the show, go do a Google search for civets and take a look at these little guys. They are freaking adorable. And this little adorable bastard gave us SARS. Yeah, it did. They traced the SARS outbreak of 2002 or 3 back to a couple civets. And the way that we're able to trace it back, did you know you can DNA test a virus? You can. That's how they track them. And see, viruses can't reproduce, so they, just quick virology lesson here. They don't reproduce. They can't mate. They're not that evolved. So what they do is they invade our bodies and they invade our cells and they use our cells' reproductive abilities to make more viruses. Some viruses do it, and they do it at such a small rate, doesn't bother you. They're actually variants of SARS. And by the way, COVID-19 is SARS. It is SARS. It's a variant of SARS. But there are some variants that you could get exposed to them all damn day and it just wouldn't bother you because they just don't reproduce enough. They don't interfere with your body's internal functions. Then there are some that have mutated that are pretty damn bad. And we know the way they've been studying zoonotic diseases all over the world. Every major university system in the world has labs studying zoonotic diseases, including several in China. Wuhan isn't the only lab in China studying zoonotic diseases, by the way. That's why this conspiracy is so freaking idiotic, because they've taken a look at COVID and they know, the MAGA, the nutballs on the right want to say, "Oh, well, that was China attacking us." Well, no, they studied the virus. They know. Believe me, if you handed the guys in the lab coats, the guys in the lab in the weapons labs, uh, SARS, COVID, oh, they could come up with something that would just, it wouldn't be a million dead. It would be hundreds of millions dead. This is not a weaponized virus. It isn't. Every scientist on the planet says that. But they mutate rather quickly. I almost did a little Trump drink there. They mutate rather quickly. And I'll wrap this up, folks. I know it's getting long. So we know in Wuhan, they kept studying, and then they found out that there's a bat cave in southern China, actually several of them. Let me bring this up for you. That they've been studying. They've been studying these particular caves for years, because during the first SARS outbreak, they were able to track it back to these bat caves. So the Chinese have been going back and studying the villagers that live around them, doing tests to see what their antibodies they're carrying. And turns out that the villagers around here, yeah, they've got COVID. They've had COVID. And when they were testing for SARS, yeah, they had SARS. And all the villagers that they were testing were saying, yeah, we saw bats in the village. Because they know bats are a huge reservoir for diseases. They tested the bats in the caves down in Guangxi in Yunnan province, and they had Ebola, they had SARS, they had, I mean, just every nasty disease you could possibly think of. These bats had, but they hadn't mutated into a strain that would affect humans yet. But these bats, that eat fruits, and some varieties like the horseshoe bats eat insects, share the trees and areas or same places that civets do. E. coli, that's right, Bridget. That absolutely. They found E. coli. They found all kinds of nasty diseases living among these bats communities that can't affect humans. They haven't mutated yet. But civets, civets, these little beautiful little tree monkey cats, um, they're one of the first ones that these viruses mutate into. Farm animals, pigs, horses have also tested positive for these diseases. So they know where they're coming from, and they know what's causing them. By going down to Guangxi, let's go to the map. I'll show you exactly where we're talking about. Guangxi is the area here in red in southern China. It's subtropical. You've probably seen video out of Vietnam and Laos and Myanmar. You've seen how uh, humid and hot and jungle subtropical this area is. By the way, Wuhan is up here. This is Wuhan. It's about 1,000 kilometers away. But what they know is that people in these areas, they have the wet markets with the crazy wildlife that gets sold in these wet markets, pangolins, all kinds of diseases. TB gets spread because the villagers in these areas make a living by capturing these animals. They ship them to the markets where they're slaughtered, and that's how a lot of these folks live. It's how they live. And if you want to know what Guangxi looks like, I got you again some more eye relief. This is Guangxi province. Isn't that just gorgeous? That's in the morning mist. Looks like something mythical, doesn't it? Looks like something they would create in a Hollywood movie. This is what Guangxi looks like in the daytime. Isn't that just amazing looking? Just beautiful, isn't it? But anyways, that's the whole deal there. Just to sum it up, you got Rand Paul who wants to run with for the nutballs, and that's the part that's freaking hilarious about this whole conspiracy theory. Um, he wants to sell to the nutballs that the CIA shut down the theory that that there was a lab leak. Janet Morecraft is one of the heads of the Republican Party, said the attack on Israel is good for the Republicans. Anytime there's a tragedy, world the world Republicans use it to put down Biden, not offer empathy. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. But what I was talking about before, just to sum up Rand Paul's whole conspiracy. His conspiracy is the CIA paid investigators to not say it was a leak from the Wuhan labs. That only matters if you care. And honestly, in the comments, just answer the question: do you really care if it leaked out of a lab in Wuhan, rather than what they think it did was come from these communities, these bat caves that are in subtropical China, that affect other animals. Those animals are shipped to the wet markets in the major cities like Wuhan and spread that way. I mean, do you care? Really? No, nobody cares. Nobody cares. That's why it's crap. Rand Paul isn't doing this to discover some conspiracy theory. Rand Paul's doing this to shut our government down, to destroy our ability to engage in diplomacy, to hurt America, because he believes that hurting America helps the Republican Party. If he can make Joe Biden look bad, he wins as far as he's concerned. And that's just Rand Paul. This jackass is doing the exact same thing to our military. Tommy Tuberville. This jackass placed a hold on all military promotions. He finally gave an inch when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, retired. This dumbass didn't realize that, yeah, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs is mandated to retire. He can only serve for so long. This jackhole didn't know that. So Mark Milley stepped down, and we had no chairman of the Joint Chiefs. So he finally allowed General Charles Brown to be promoted. And that was the only one he gave. He has still decapitated our military. And in CENTCOM I mean, all of the important spheres of influence, all of our leadership. And we're talking about it's totaling in the thousands now of officers that have not been promoted up the chain. He is intentionally hobbling our military now and won't stop. He too is a Putin lover. He also loves white nationalists. See, what Tommy Tuberville is saying now is that, oh, the reason I'm doing that is abortion. I don't agree with the military's abortion policy. That's a load of crap. That's a load of crap. The Republicans, rightly so, were being torched because this jackhole started putting holds on the military because the military was rooting out white supremacists. And that's when he started putting holds on it. That's when he famously said, well, I don't call white supremacists extremists. I call them Americans. This Alabama Bubba is protecting Tuberville. Absolutely, Alan. Absolutely. Never let anybody in Alabama forget this treason. Mike Crucial says he is a white supremacist. Yeah, that's the big man. No offense, but that's the biggest duh statement of the century. Yeah, that's why he's doing this. But the politicos told him, you can't do that. You're going to get yourself kicked out of office. You're going to make us lose elections if you say that. Say it's about abortion, man. We can do anything as long as you say it's about abortion. So now he claims because military service members can travel to places where it's legal to get an abortion if they are stationed in a state that does not allow abortions, that he's going to hold up all military promotions, which just happens to coincide with Putin's battle of the bulge, his attacks on Israel, which brings us to this last jackhole, Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz just pulled a little thing right in time for Putin's birthday. Matt Gaetz decapitated the House of Representatives. You know, I don't like Republicans, but at least I want a functioning House. We don't have one now. Just in time for Putin and his Iranian allies to foment, support, train an invasion of Israel. And folks, this was not Hamas dumbasses. They were trained, they had air commando training. They parachuted in behind lines, folks. That means they had planes and pilots trained for this. They had their soldiers trained in air commando tactics. That music festival that that I just showed you where they murdered all those people, those were people that parachuted in to that festival. That was not capability Hamas had. Hamas also did an end run around the wall by using fishing boats. And right now, the corporate media is doing Hamas's bidding. They're just whining about, oh, Israel's destroying fishing boats. How are the Palestinians going to eat? Hamas was using the fishing boats to do amphibious landings. The Iranian Guard trained Hamas on how to do amphibious landings. Kelly says, I saw a vid of the parachutists. Yeah, there are plenty of videos of that. I invite you, if you care to see, go do some searches after the show. You'll see it's all there. This is a modern era. It's all available for you to see. I do not recommend that you look at the atrocities. Just know they exist. But don't look at and spread the atrocities. That does nothing but serve Hamas. A lot of people ask questions about Putin fearing Wagner and Wagner troops looking for work. Absolutely. Absolutely. Putin absolutely has Wagner troops training. You know, Hamas just went to Russia. It was a big deal. They didn't hide it, man. Last month they just went and met with Putin and the head of their legislature. Had a big old great time. What do you think they were talking about? Putin, I got your back. You know, you don't get amphibious training just anywhere. You know, it's not just jumping off a boat. You jump off a boat carrying an AK-47 and enough ammunition to fight a battle, you tend to drown. A lot of people tend to drown. You have to know how to do it. You don't have to know when to approach, how to approach at night. Then there was overcoming the Iron Dome, one of the most sophisticated air defense systems on the planet. with shitty dumb rockets. That was not homegrown in Hamas. Understanding that technology, where to fire the missiles, how many to fire in order to tie up the air defense systems so that you can get missiles through. They're more advanced missiles and hit the targets that they wanted to hit. That required intelligence. That required the Russians. Even Iran doesn't have that intelligence. That was the Russians. So where are we now? I mean, what are we doing now? What's going to happen? Well, like I said, this was his battle of the bulge. It's destined to fail. It's destined to fail. We're going to decimate the Republicans in the next election. Ukraine will get its support, one way or the other. I've told you before, even if the Republicans were able to kill the support for Ukraine, which is what, by the way, Matt Gaetz took McCarthy out for, because he had made a deal to bring an up or down vote on Ukraine funding to the floor. If Democrats would give McCarthy enough votes to pass a continuing resolution to keep the government from shutting down, which would blow up in the Republicans' faces, McCarthy made the deal with Hakeem Jeffries and President Biden that he would bring Ukraine funding to the floor. The continuing resolution happened days before the Ukraine funding information came out. And Republicans grumbled about it, like Matt Gaetz in the Free Dumb Caucus grumbled about it, but they didn't do anything. They acted when they found out that Ukraine funding was coming to a vote, that he had made a deal to bring Ukraine funding to the floor because they knew it would pass. So Matt Gaetz decapitated our House of Representatives as a birthday present for Vladimir Putin. I want you to think about that, folks. Our diplomatic corps is hobbled, our military is hobbled, and now we can't even get funding bills through the House. Who does that serve? Who does that serve, and who is doing it? Karen Trimmer says Trump made a post warning Jews that they better get on the right side because something big was coming within the last couple of months. Yeah. Yeah. They've been grumbling about this, but the corporate media is not going to look at that. If the corporate media looks at that, if the corporate media shows you, hey, Republicans have decimated our government, have hobbled, they have cut our Achilles heels, our abilities to respond right in time for Putin and his birthday and his battle of the bulge, Republicans get decimated and the corporate media doesn't get its billions of dollars that they get every election. Because if it is not a horse race, if the Republicans aren't in it, the billionaire frat boys hold their money. And if the billionaire frat boys hold their money that support Republicans, Democrats don't have to spend as much to defeat them. And the corporate media loses billions of dollars every election cycle that this happens. They must keep the Republicans propped up. And that's just the God's honest truth, folks. That's why the corporate media has been so slow to show you actually what's happened. I mean, how many days? I had to go to news sources within Israel to bring you accurate information, folks. Every major news outlet in our country, whether it be print, online or television media has desks in Tel Aviv, has reporters in Israel. They have contractors in Israel that they could have put on the ground immediately. They did not want that information. They just didn't. And they immediately, and I know this is going to piss a lot of you off. I don't even care. I don't care. They corporate media immediately went to the poor picked on Palestinian narrative because it sells. It sells. And a lot of Palestinians did not do this, are about to get hurt because they're in the middle of a battlefield of Hamas's choosing. Hamas chooses to live among civilians in Gaza, and Israel cannot allow Hamas to continue to exist. Not after this. So what's the long game? What's the long game? See, Putin's in trouble. There's one military in the Middle East that can stand toe to toe with Israel. Just one. Not Jordan, not Syria. If Israel declared war on Syria, Syria would be toast. Toast. Not Iraq, not Iran. Iran cannot fight a ground war, cannot fight an air war against Israel. They can't. There's one military in the Middle East that could go toe to toe with Israel, and that's Turkey. And there has been a battle for the hearts and minds of Turkey. See, Turkey used to be a very strong ally of ours. We used to have our Jupiter missile silos in Turkey, you know, nuclear missiles back in the old days when, Russia and us both had thousands and thousands of missiles trained on each other. Turkey used to be a pretty strong ally of ours, but over the last few decades, and with the uh, Erdogan seizing power and winning, actually came in by election um, in Turkey, the Russians have really appealed to them. They've really been doing the diplomatic work. See, during the Soviet Union, you had Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan. These were all states to the east of Turkey, and they just didn't have. I mean, Turkey hates Armenia. Turkey hates Georgia. They do. They do not get along. Even though Erdogan himself is from Georgia, they claims he's from a town called Riza, but nobody can find records of him being born there. It was it's widely accepted within the world that he was actually a Georgian. By the way, Stalin was Georgian also. He wasn't Russian by birth. He was Georgian. Um, but yeah, Erdogan has dreams. Erdogan wants to be the new Ottoman Empire. He wants to be the first first sultan of the new Ottoman Empire. And that's what he's bargaining for right now. That's why he came out so loudly. He's trying to win over Arab support. Arabs are the minority in Turkey, but he is trying to win over Arab support in the rest of the Middle East. He plans to expand his empire. He does. I want to introduce you to the deadliest, most advanced, most expensive tank in the world. It actually is better than the Abrams. This is called the K2 Black Panther. It's made by Hyundai's military division, Rotem, and it has the best suspension. Um, it got an effect. It's got the same 120 millimeter smoothbore cannon that our Abrams does. It fires NATO artillery rounds plus some advanced rounds that they've developed just for this tank. It's about $8.5 million a pop. And until we actually bring the Abrams X out, which we don't probably will not have until about 2030, folks, this is actually the biggest, baddest tank on the battlefield. And Turkey just bought has just entered into an agreement to buy 2,000 of these. See, Turkey's rolling right now. They've got Leopard 2s, Leopard 1s, and then the vast majority of their tanks are Pattons, our old Patton tanks. They took the Patton tanks, um, contracted through Israel to modify them, and they shoved a bunch of electronics in them and made a pretty damn good tank. They really are. The M60 Pattons are just they're really good tanks. And Turkey rocks about 2,200 of them. That's a lot of tanks, folks. That is a lot of tanks. But they're replacing all of the Pattons with the K2 Panthers. And there's an old expression that's used a lot in the military. You don't put on a condom unless you intend to screw. And I'm telling you, folks, Turkey's going to do some screwing when they get their hands on those tanks. They are. They're advancing their air force, and we know it. We know that they are. What's happening right now behind the scenes is Russia is pandering to Turkey to try to keep them as their allies because Turkey holds the Bosphorus Straits. There is no way in and out of the Black Sea unless Turkey lets you. Period. That's it. Every bit of grain that flows out of Russia by ship and out of Ukraine by ship must go through Turkey. The city of Istanbul straddles the Bosphorus Strait. It's on both sides. You cannot move a ship in and out of the Black Sea without Turkey's consent. And Turkey had been our allies forever. Russia has been pandering to them hard. And this stance that Turkey's taken since the attacks in Israel is a negotiation tactic. They're not really going to go against Israel. Hell, Israel, like I said, has been building tanks for them for years. They've got a good relationship with Israel behind the scenes. This is going to mean problems for a lot of people. Armenia and Azerbaijan, you're going to see the expansion of Turkey. That is going to be the critical battles of the next coming decades. And right now, we have a Republican Party that is incredibly short-sighted. They don't understand Russia. They don't understand Russia's weakness, corruption. They don't understand that Russia's manipulation of them will eventually lead to drastic problems for us. If we lost Turkey as an ally, we would be screwed in the Middle East. Absolutely screwed. As much as I love Israel as an ally there, because they are ride or die, man. They're the only country in the Middle East where their citizens don't stand in the streets and scream death to America. Turkey is a stronger ally to have. And we've seen Europe step up because, the Bosphorus Strait splits Asia and Europe. Part of Turkey lies in Asia, in the Middle East, and part of Turkey lies in southeastern Europe. borders Bulgaria. And Europe has stepped up, specifically the Swedes has stepped up their diplomacy to bring Erdogan in to the fold. But everyone knows, and as a comment was put before, that people don't trust Turkey, everyone knows what Erdogan's goal is. It is a new Ottoman Empire. And people fear where that will end because the last Ottoman Empire stretched all the way up into Ukraine and all the way across the Middle East and all the way down to the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. What does that look like? We need competent people in charge. But the bottom line in this is Putin will fail. This last attack is horrific, just like the Battle of the Bulge. Just like the Battle of the Bulge, it was useless, it was stupid, and it's going to cost lives. But Putin is desperate. He's failing in Ukraine, which will bring his regime to an end. When they lose Donetsk, I will not be surprised if he doesn't face a military coup. I will not be surprised if he does not face a military coup. He cannot stand the loss of Crimea. He cannot stand the loss of Donetsk. He can't. He will not survive it, and he knows it. And this is taking the last of his reserves and throwing them to their deaths in Donetsk. And that's why people in Israel had to die. And it's really that simple. It really is that simple because, folks, Hamas got nothing out of this. They got nothing out of it. They're going to be utterly destroyed. Iran just isolated itself even worse than it is now. We're going to see some higher gas prices. That's about it. That's the worst hit that we've gotten. And I'm afraid that there are going to be some terrorist attacks here. They're going to attack some synagogues. You know, the white supremacists in this country work directly with Russia. And I don't entertain the notion that Hamas were the only idiots that are going to be willing to destroy themselves for Putin. I do believe that we're going to have to brace ourselves. We're going to have to brace ourselves for terrorist attacks, folks. We are. I wish I could tell you they're not coming, but they're coming. Rich Lawton says, great information. Thanks for shining a light on what's going on and hope Putin ends up like Musolini. I hope worse. I hope worse. Because we have to be realistic about that, folks. The Republicans, do you really believe it's coincidence that our State Department, our military, and our House of Representatives, where all spending bills originate, all got incapacitated, decapitated at this exact moment in time? Thanks for the support, Jaylen. I really appreciate it. Honestly, let's move into the roundtable with that question to you. Do you honestly believe that 3 Republicans decapitated our State Department, hobbled our State Department, hobbled our military, and hobbled our legislature? Do you really think that happened just coincidentally timing now with Putin's Battle of the Bulge, his birthday? You know, I had a lot of people attack me when I said that yesterday. I put a video out talking about that, calling me a conspiracy nut. I invite you. Tell me the odds. Can I get a beer? Says this is coordinated MAGA interference. Yes, that's exactly what I am saying. That is exactly what I am alleging right now, that this is a conspiracy theory Just like we saw going into World War II, we had Americans working with Hitler. Just like going into World War I, we had folks that were doing everything they could to keep us from supporting our British and French allies. I'm saying we are having the exact same thing happen right now with Republicans in this country, that the timing of this was not accidental or coincidental. What are the odds, folks? What are the mathematical odds that the our State Department, our ability to engage in diplomacy would be hobbled, our military promotions would be cut off, and we'd have acting officers in commands in all of our major theaters at the and our House of Representatives would be completely hobbled and unable to operate due to the same party with the same allies that all of that benefits. What really are, I mean, is that much of a reach? To me, it looks like common sense. But hey, I got called a bigot and a racist for saying this, for saying that Hamas went to work for Putin, that Hamas made a deal that was a stupid deal, and they're going to get themselves utterly destroyed and take a lot of innocent Palestinians with them. They are. But I warned everybody in advance. When Israel acts, I will not be the one that is screaming Israel must stop, because I believe no one in that region wants peace. No one in power, anyways, wants peace. So I have no one to advocate for peace. All I can do is sit back and watch it happen. And I hate that. I do. I hate that. Evie Zanch, you always make great comments. The Russian intelligence services have working on these acts of war. I agree with you 100%. You know, guys, if you know something that, that shoots holes in what I'm saying, please tell me, because I would really like to believe. I would really like to believe that my country is not complicit in this. But I absolutely am telling you, the Republicans are complicit in this. There's no way mathematically this is all just accidentally happening. There's a reason the CIA will not give Rand Paul any information. Am I aware of what's going on in North Carolina? I've been following it. I have. Petrazi says that makes total sense, Paul. These MAGA are anti-American. Yes, they are. They are 100% anti-American. But again, this is just like the Battle of the Bulge, folks. This changes nothing in the long run. Ukraine will win. Ukraine will join Europe. Europe is refusing to have another land war in their countries. They're going to support. If we didn't send another dime, tank, plane, or gallon of fuel to Ukraine, Europe would. They understand. Germany understands what this means. Ukraine must win here. And, you know, I realize Putin really thought he could just shake everybody in their boots, man. He thought he could just roll in and we would believe the nonsense that our military's been telling us for years. Thanks for the support, Barbara Lincoln. Our military has been telling us for years Russia is not what they claim to be. They are a paper tiger, as the Chinese once called us. They really are. And Turkey knows this. And that's the challenges we've got facing us in the future. And we need competent people to be able to deal with it. We can't do this Republican nonsense anymore. They're inept. They cannot govern. They are willing to hurt our country to help our enemy because they think it gives them short-term gain. when they've destroyed themselves by taking checks from the billionaire frat boys club and doing things that help hurt your average American. Robert Rucker says, in Citizens United. Absolutely. We need to vote enough Democrats in that we make United absolutely disappear. Well, folks, on that, it is 11 o'clock. We'll talk about North Carolina on Friday. We're out of time. I want you to have a wonderful day. Go look at some civets online. They are beautiful little creatures. Try to not look at the atrocities, but I assure you more are coming. More news is coming. The mainstream corporate media tried not to look at it, but it's come out. People like me have been going to Israeli media, posting it online, the things that are actually happening, and the corporate media can't ignore it anymore. So you're going to see it. I advise, don't share it, and don't watch it if you don't have to. Here's some beautiful Texas cities at night. Love you folks. Thanks for being here. Y'all have a great day. Folks, y'all have a wonderful day. Enjoy Hal Sparks. Enjoy Tony Michaels. Well, Texas Paul out.